Now on Sports Talk, it's SC Wild with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. Major Downer is here to take your questions about the great outdoors in South Carolina. Give him a call at 888-898-2525. It's SC Wild from DNR on the Sports Talk Radio Network.
It is time to welcome in Major Billy Downer back to Sports Talk for another edition of SC Wild from the Department of Natural Resources. Here on the Sports Talk Media Network, you want to reach out to the Major with a question or a comment about the outdoors, especially about boating and boating along the coasts, boating in the Atlantic Ocean. Our phone number, 888-898-2525, 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery Lucky Number here on Sports Talk and on SC Wild. Major, good evening. How are you?
Always a pleasure to be with you. Glad to be a part of tonight's show. Coming to you live from Edisto Beach.
Oh,
South
yeah.
Carolina.
That is one lovely area. If you're looking for peace and quiet, you have found it there at Edisto Beach. That's
correct. That is it. No doubt about it. Enjoying a week down here, and I thought it would be appropriate to talk about coastal boating, since I've been doing a little bit of that, and all the things you remember that you've forgotten when you get out on the water on the coast.
So you're taking the new boat out on the water.
I have taken the new boat to me. Remember, it's new to me.
Yeah.
Boat. Yeah. Yes. So, and just, one of the things that constantly over the years, Phil, you have heard me say on the show over and over again is about life jackets. And I know people get tired of hearing about life jackets. Oh, he's talking about life jackets again. If I have a safety tip for anybody, I've always included at some point, make sure you've got your life jackets, that they fit everybody on the boat, that they're in a place you can get to them, and that they are readily accessible, place you can get to them, and then they're in proper working condition. No rips, tears, holes, mold, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've said that so much, but, unfortunately, every year, and this is no different, we have an accident or a boating accident that could have been prevented when someone's being pulled on a tube and they're not wearing life jackets. And they fall off and they can't swim very well, they get distressed, and they go under. And those are accidents that can be prevented so easily. Plus, it's the law. You're supposed to wear your life jacket when you're on a tube. So if everyone just tonight pay attention to that. There's a reason why we require people to wear a life jacket on a tube, because inherently you get bounced around, pulled at a fast speed. You're going to fall off. You could hit your head. You could, I don't know how many times on a tube I've been flipped off, and your body, if you want to see how flexible your body is, fall off a tube, because your feet will come and hit the back of your head before you know it.
Mm.
And I've never figured out how my body does that, but it'll do it every time. And if you're stunned for a minute and you take in water at the wrong moment, you're going down. And I just want to remind people, please make sure everybody's wearing a life jacket when you're out there on tubes, when you're skiing, when you're whatever you're doing, as far as you're pulling anybody behind a boat. If you're wakeboarding, if you're surfing behind a boat, wear a PFD, wear that life jacket, so that if something happens, you knock your head, even if you're out cold, you'll float. And that's important, because the boat can turn around and come get you. Because, again, year in, year out, we have these incidents that happen, and they can just be prevented so easily. So I hate to start off like that, but I just want to remind our folks listening, if you have loved ones out there and you're on a boat, so many people in South Carolina boat, we talk about that again all the time. Just wear a life jacket when you need to.
I think
when you're pulling somebody on a tube.
I think it's a timely mention, Major, because I saw a post on X from DNR. I think it was over the weekend or maybe last week, where there was a fatality in the Charleston area related to a boating accident.
Yep. We have one actually related to somebody pulling. Boating accidents don't always involve a boat hitting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Boating accidents, if someone is being pulled and they fall off and they drown and they were being pulled by the boat, that becomes a boating accident. So boating accidents don't always mean a boat hits another boat sometimes. It's interesting how things get recorded, but that's some may not think that's a boating fatality, but it's a fatality that occurred while someone was boating, so it counts. And here's my point: it doesn't matter if it counts as a fatality, a boating fatality or not. Somebody lost their life, and it can be prevented if we just wear life jackets when you're supposed to. If you're on a boat, make sure you got them at the in a place you can get to them in a hurry. It's just something that's so easy to prevent. So, but that was just something I wanted to start off with because yes, we have had some fatalities this year already, and one for sure it was related to life jacket wear, no doubt about it. So, just a quick message to our folks to remember.
I wanted to ask you too, because I mean, you're a veteran boat driver. All right, I mean you've boated around. Is that a proper use of the word? Boated around? You've
that's true. Yeah, sure.
You've boated around the entire state, both in freshwater and saltwater lakes and inlets and waterways. The transition from going from like an inlet or a waterway into the Atlantic. I know you've probably done that a zillion times, but what are some of the do's and don'ts as you make that transition into the choppy, wavy Atlantic Ocean until you get past the breakers and get out into some smooth water? I guess you maybe got to go out, I don't know, half a mile, maybe a mile. But what are some of the
If it's not smooth when you're going out, it's not going to be smooth when you're out there either.
Okay.
Let me just go ahead and cue. So let me stop you real quick on that one. So I haven't done the ocean a zillion times. The ocean's not somewhere I work a lot with DNR, some, but not a lot. We got officers that go out in that ocean every day that are well-versed in it. They just, they're used to working in that environment. I was more inland. I had boated on the coast in, basically in our inlets and near shore areas for fishing. So I have experience there personally. And one of the things tonight, just wanted to talk about for a minute. We talk about boating so much, and we talk about safety and what you need to have on your boat. We talk about making sure, that you have your life jackets, that you have a throwable device on board if your boat's 16 foot or longer, that your lights are working. If you're out past, sunset, which is coming up pretty soon here tonight, 30 minutes after the show ends at 8:30, sunset here down at the beach, you got to have your lights on at that point in time because the light begins to fade rapidly. So you need to have your lights on so that people can see you at night when it gets darker. Again, we talk about, registration cards and all these things and fire extinguishers. When you're on the coast, there's more to be concerned with safety. In the water on the lakes, we have stumps sometimes that, you can hit, things like that in the swamp or on Lake Marion maybe. But a lot of our inland lakes are pretty clear of debris, like Kiwi, Murray. They don't have a lot of debris you're going to hit. And they certainly don't have rising and falling water. So when you go to the coastal environment, and the coastal environment doesn't mean going offshore. It can be inshore coastal. In some of our inshore estuary areas, great rivers, like here at Edisto Beach, Charleston, in Luando, other areas like that, or, up in McClellanville, up on the intercoastal waterway, all the way down to Fripp Island, Fripp Inlet, all these intercoastal areas and coastal areas that are inside from the ocean, the great big blue there. But when you get into the coastal environment, yes, safety is important. Life jackets, absolutely. Making sure you've got your running lights working, all those things. You have a fire extinguisher, all the things, a whistle, all those things we talk about all the time. But if you're in coastal waters and you go offshore, or you're in an area that's 2 miles wide or wider, like Bulls Bay up toward Georgetown, or down in Beaufort in the big Calabogie Sound, you've got to have what's called visual distress signals. And those visual distress signals, the Coast Guard may have like flares. So most commonly flares. People use flares. You got to make sure your flares are in the date that's on the package, that they're not expired, and you got to have at least 3 good ones that are unexpired on your boat when you're boating in the coastal areas. That's just a safety piece. But on past all the safety equipment, something that I was reminded of today, when you're going in 7 foot of water and the tide's falling, and the next thing you know, your motor's going whoop, 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 and it's popping on, and you see mud flinging up, and your boat grounds on something, and you're going, rut-row, this could be bad. You've got a falling tide. You hit a sandbar. Now what? Fortunately, I wasn't going that fast, or I was quick enough thinking to pick my motor up and to be able to ease off that little bar I was on. But the coast has so many other obstacles that you can't see sometimes, particularly if you're not used to running here. There are signs, ripples in the water. You can see where the water's a little different shade, where it's actually shallower. But you've got a tide that falls. And right now, approaching the full moon, we got a really drastic tide change from high to low, might be 3-4 feet or more. And so you're in these backwater creeks that can literally dry up on you. So boating on the coast, you've got to be concerned with the tide, understanding your tide charts. When you're going out, are you going out at low tide or high tide? Because if you go out at high tide, it's going to be lower when you come back. And you can go places sometimes on the coast that you can't get back out of. If you're going fishing and you go back in the creek too far, you may not be able to get out of there and tides are 6 hours before they swing around again, depending on how drastic that change is. So those are things to think about. Today, I was cruising around at low tide almost. So the safety feature in that is, if you get stuck, at least the tide's going to turn around and come back to high tide on you. You're not going to have to wait. Like if you're going on a falling tide, and let's say it's halfway through the tide, and you get stuck somewhere, you got to wait 3 hours for low tide to occur, then 3 hours to get back to where you got stuck, and then an hour or two past that to get to where you can get off of it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That could make a really good day an 8-hour miserable day, sitting there on a sandbar.
And it's all about knowing the tide table, right? You have to educate yourself before you start messing with the ocean?
That's correct. The tide tables are very important. Knowing the creeks you're running, and most people come down, like they come here to Edisto for the week or the beach, wherever, and they just put their boat in like they do at the lake, and they get out here and they get lucky half the time. But sometimes you're not as lucky. You got to be careful. And if you ground a boat and you're going at good speed, people can get hurt. So there's reasons why you need to be careful. If you ground the boat stops real quickly. People can get thrown forward in a boat. Even though you didn't hit anything except sand, someone in your boat could hit the console front of the boat, fall out, get hurt a number of ways. So just, you want to be careful. If you're boating in an area you're not familiar with, go slower. Kind of, check things out. Go in the coastal environment, to me, boat at low tide so you can learn your area if you don't know it. Another feature, again, not one of those mandatory safety equipments, but having a good GPS with a nautical chart that gives you the depths, and generally those charts will give you maximum low tide depths, so you'll know where to avoid creeks. Those are good charts. Yeah, they may cost $199 for you to download that chart, but it'd be worth $199 than sitting there 8 hours in the sun with no-shims biting you for the next 8 hours while you wait on the tide to turn around.
All right, let me ask you this. I want to ask you this. Now, along with knowing the tides, of course, and knowing how to avoid the sandbars and all that, if you're talking to a new person, a rookie boat driver,
right,
taking his boat into the ocean, when you're at Edisto, where do you put in your boat to be able to get into the ocean?
So, again, that's a whole other thing about boating that's one of those untalked about things is people that have never boated before. How do you get in the water? Well, you'll see docks that are private. You'll see landings that are private. At Edisto, you have a marina, the Edisto Marina you can put in there. You can put in at State Park. But all these places charge a fee to put in. The state parks don't charge you to put in, but they charge you to park. So you're still getting a fee for trying to get in. So you need to know that up front. You need to have money with you. You put in at a landing. If you don't pay the landing fee, they're going to have your vehicle towed. And nobody wants to come back from being on the water and not have your vehicle sitting there with your trailer
Mm.
because it's been towed because you didn't pay the ramp fee, so to speak. There are some public ramps around. On Edisto, you go back a good ways, and you'll find there's a couple public landings that aren't necessarily close to the beach area. But anyway, it's trying to think right now. Is one I'm thinking about right now. It's can't remember the landing close to here. But so looking at your maps, and again, you can Google that, and you'll put up local. Google's so good about coming up with local landings, public landings near Edisto Beach, and it'll give you a bunch of them. They come up pretty easily. Fripp Island, Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach, a lot of people put in over there in Murrells Inlet.
Mm-hmm.
When I say Myrtle Beach, I mean Garden City, Surfside. They put in over there at Murrells Inlet at the public boat ramp there near Captain Dick's Marina.
Oh, yeah.
There's other areas up north. When you go up north to Little River, there's other public landings there. There's a public landing there on the Intercoastal Waterway, right where 501 crosses it. So there's several public landing points up and down the coast, of course. Georgetown, there's some public landings there. There's one on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on the refuge is a landing there. So lots of landings up and down the coast. But, yes, knowing where to put in is the first thing. Knowing the tides, though, in a coastal environment is imperative to having a good boating experience on the coast. Even if you're not going offshore.
Yeah, here was my question to follow up on that. So what are the most important things to know for the inexperienced boat operator who's taking his, I don't know, 75 horsepower Johnson motorcraft, and he wants to go into the Atlantic Ocean? He wants to go through one of the jetties or one of the openings, and going to be going out there, facing the waves, rolling in and all that. From a safety standpoint and advice standpoint on how to best navigate that, assuming that you figured out that I'm not going to get stuck and I can handle, I'm not going to get caught on a sandbar. What are a couple of key things to being able to navigate your way out there so you don't get up, thrown up against the rocks or something like that?
So that's a loaded question.
Okay.
When you talk about leaving inshore and going offshore.
Correct.
Totally different environment. Yes, people did it for years in much smaller boats than they do today, for sure. People that go offshore today typically have two motors, so they got a backup. And they have boats that are bigger than the ones that I got, So, but then there's still people that go off in single motors and have a great time. One of the best ways to going offshore, let me back up. One thing, make sure you have life jackets that will float you if the worst happens and you have to go into the water offshore. You want a Type 1, what we used to call Type 1. Now they're the 100 or 150 class life jacket that will float you for a long period of time if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
Those old Type 1s had a lot more flotation in them. They're bigger. Yes, they're bulkier. They're not fun to wear. But when you need them, they're absolutely imperative because they keep you face up, even if you're unconscious, and they will float you for long periods of time offshore. If you're going to be boating offshore at the ocean, I think one of the best pieces of advice to give any boater is to have a membership with Sea-Tow or Towboat US. These are companies that are like AAA for boaters. If you get out there and you get in trouble and your motor breaks down, they will come get you. You pay a membership fee for the year, a couple $100, and they will actually come get you and tow you in.
Mm.
That is worth its weight in gold. And most people that go offshore a lot have a membership in Sea-Tow or Towboat US, two companies out there that are very popular, and they will come get you. They will come bring you gas if you run out of gas. Even inshore, they'll come give you gas, bring you gas. It's a great membership to have, particularly for those that are new to boating. It's a great one. People have those memberships at Towboat US is becoming really popular inshore now, and even on our inland lakes, because people are so, people don't think. They get out there, run out of gas, or they have a breakdown, and Towboat US is on a lot of our major lakes. They're out there on, I know on Santee Cooper Lakes, I saw a Towboat US there. I couldn't believe it. They do now. Back in the day, we had to go do that a lot. But 20 years has changed a lot. And the Lake Murray's got Towboat US. They've got Kiwi. I think's got it. I know. So it's very popular now. It's a great membership to have. So offshore, absolutely have it. But as far as learning offshore, you can't just study up on how to go offshore. Know how to run your markers. We haven't talked about the lateral system. That's a whole nother show we could do just on the lateral system markers. Red, right, returning, green markers, your red triangles, green squares. Your red right, the red triangle is going to be on your left as you're going offshore, and green is going to be on your right when you're coming in. And those markers are designed to tell you the deep water channel to get you safely out into the ocean. If you go out from any jetty area, there's going to be none buoys, can buoys out there, and day markers that kind of mark your way going out, so you can safely get out of the bay or out of whatever inlet you're in, even here at Edisto, out into the water, to deep water. And then when you're coming in, you look for those markers to come find your way in also. And generally they have lights on them at night too. A lot of them do. Most of them do have lights. So again, your lateral system, the red triangles, the green cans or the green squares, are there to help you find your way in the deep water channel in our major coastal areas. So that's a big piece. And that just takes, you can go through a class and learn what those mean, but navigating them, time, experience is what matters. So if you've never done it before, might want to go with somebody that has before you go yourself to kind of learn an area. I
got to tell you, I've done it coming out of Murrell's Inlet. I know you've come out of Murrell's Inlet to go into the ocean. You know how, that path.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And the first time, and I mean, I'm an inexperienced boat operator. And, boy, the first time that I dared to go past the jetties there, and when I said rocks, that they have an entrance into the ocean, and it's rocks on both sides. They've kind of cut an opening through there. And I got to tell you, my heart was in my throat the whole time. I was scared. I was scared to death the boat was going to get swamped, or I was going to get pushed into those rocks. And you're right. You probably, before you take it on yourself, you should probably go with somebody that kind of knows what they're doing.
Absolutely. And remember this: if you get out, if it's going to be rough, it's going to be rough before you get out there a lot of times. But sometimes it can be smooth in the morning, and you go out there, and 3 hours later, it can be 2 to 4 foot seas, and that's tremendous if you've never been in it before.
Mm-hmm.
And it can get to 6 foot sea. I mean, you're crazy. 2 to 4 is basically your feet. Your height of your wave from the top of the wave to the crest to the trough, and then you've got distance between them. How often they're coming, and there's different buoys offshore that you can look up that information before you go out to. If you know how to look on the NOAA website, and it'll tell you what the waves are offshore where you're going. So that's another piece of information. But a lot more we can talk about. Probably get one of our coastal guys on the show in the near future here, and we'll talk more about offshore boating, because that's a lot of people want to know more about that.
Yeah, I agree. I got one piece of advice for you before we let you go.
Go for it.
Turn before you burn.
Turn before you burn. Absolutely. That's great. That's great advice. Great advice. And on a boat, don't think you can't get burned either. So make sure you take suntan lotion out there when you're on the boat as well, because you can get fried as well.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Well, you enjoy your remaining time at Edisto Beach, and thank you for being with us tonight. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir. Enjoy the show. We'll talk next time.
As always, thank you.
We'll be getting ready for July 4th.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, sir. All right, Major Billy Downer from the Department of Natural Resources. Another edition of SC Wild from DNR here on Sports Talk. Great stuff. I mean, I'm always amazed by the depth of his knowledge, but I try to learn something as well, because everything he shares with us can be of use to you if you are, in this case, a boater, and, you're thinking about going out in the ocean. Hope you listen to what he had to say and take those proper preparations. All right, that'll do it. Big show tomorrow night. Look forward to it. Thank you, Josh, and have a good night, everybody.